Well, the greyhounds, how often did you used to go back in the day? Have you right up until the forthcoming ban on greyhound racing in the ACT? The racing industry has criticised new draft rules for keeping and breeding the animals. The draft code of practice sets out how greyhounds must be fed, housed, groomed and bred as both pets and for racing in other jurisdictions. So regardless of where you have landed on this issue, and there has been strong opinion on both sides of this equation, I wonder whether you think the draft code of practice is appropriate. Kel Watt has been the spokesperson for the greyhound industry in recent months. He's in to discuss his and the industry's thoughts on these new practice and this draft code of practice. Kel Watt, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you and listeners.
Is it right and appropriate for the government, first of all, to set down a draft code of practice in the circumstances that we're in?
Oh, absolutely. This is a process that's happened all around Australia. And in fact, we see this as being something that will build on the great work of reform and policy development here in the ACT, but also right around the country through the national peak body Greyhounds Australasia, and can actually complement a lot of the local policies we've got here, such as the 0% unnecessary euthanasia policy, the 100% rehoming policy. So the problem doesn't lie in the fact there is going to be a code. It's good. What I will say as someone that has seen the industry up close, very, very closely the last 18 months, as someone who's been a former advisor to the Federal Agriculture Minister, I can say without doubt that the racing greyhound in Australia is the most regulated animal in the country and probably the world, exceeds any other livestock or any other animals for any industry. So this goes hand in hand with that. The objections come from the local industry where there's a deliberate overreach and also the lack of time and zero to respond, but also the zero consultation. So, well, I'll let you go on.
Tell us a bit about that, as far as what opportunity you believe the industry has had to put forward the ways in which the draft code of practice can work, and what expertise you believe you have to offer.
Oh, well, the expertise obviously through animal husbandry, but it's not just the expertise of the Canberra Greyhound Club and the ACT industry that's been excluded. We've also seen the government fail to consult with the Australian Veterinary Association. Dr. Tim Mather, who's a highly decorated local vet and works very closely with the industry here and specialises in greyhounds, he was excluded. I've also spoken to various rehoming groups that are both pro and anti-racing. Mm-hmm. They were deliberately excluded from it. So the first we heard of this arriving on our doorstep for feedback was Tuesday morning, just after the Easter long weekend. So this email was sent out from the government saying, please give us your feedback by the following Friday. That was sent after hours on the Thursday afternoon before Easter. So then had the crazy situation where people that are desperately trying to get themselves organised to look at how they're going to conduct their lives, are they going to have a livelihood, what do they do to look after their animals, were given just 3 working days. On top of that, they're a volunteer board. They all have 9 to 5 jobs. So we had the crazy situation where people were sitting at the clubhouse as soon as they finished work, right till the wee hours of the morning for 3 consecutive nights, just to get this responded to.
It is the draft code of practice. This is not law at this stage. Is there an understanding from you that this is part of the process and by no means the government's final set of rules as to how greyhounds can be homed and bred here?
Well, we hope it's a draft because there's so many ambiguities. The document was riddled with typos, but it also contradicts itself on a couple of occasions. But there are some grave concerns. So if you genuinely have concern for animal welfare, one of the things I know was running on the news, where one of the proposals in the draft document is to separate puppies, newborn puppies, from their mother if there's more than 4. So if you've got a litter of 5, 6 plus dogs, this code says you can only have 4 at one time with a mother up until its first few weeks of life. That is a crazy situation. No one in the industry, and I don't think anyone who's ever raised kids or anyone who's loved any animal would think that's a proper and right thing to do.
So has the industry put down a series of these concerns and sent them through to the government at this point?
Well, they worked a minor miracle. The subcommittee was able to get together. It went in on the Friday as requested. So we've gone through literally line by line, paragraph by paragraph to respond to each of the various clauses and proposals in the document. A lot of them we just simply note and say it's not a problem. But there are some that we push back very strongly on.
So hang on, just to clarify there, there are elements of this, quite a few elements of this draft code that you're happy with, that will pass muster.
To be honest, on probably about 80% plus is we're very happy with. But where it stinks big time. So one of the things I'll give you, like the animal welfare of the puppies is just one example I mentioned a moment ago. But the thing that has got a bit of sting in the tail is that there's been a lot of science, research and evidence-based work over decades now about what is the appropriate kennel size for a dog, where, how much should they eat, how much should they exercise, all those sort of things. So it's always science at the basis of any decision and regulation. One of the decisions that's been in place for a long time is that the sleeping place for the dog has got to be 3 square metres. That's the national standard. So people here that are in the industry have gone to great expense, thousands, probably tens of thousands of dollars in some instances, to build these kennels and make sure their properties where they house the dogs are fully to regulation requirement. Now, this document comes around all of a sudden and says from the 1st of May, you're going to need 4 square metres. We can only see that as a little bit of malice. So we don't even know. Does that apply to everybody?
Malice or trying to improve the lot of an individual greyhound?
Well, there is no evidence to support that. In fact, the research and evidence that has been provided by researchers and people that specialise, not through the industry, but independent people, shows that 3 square metres is actually better than 4 square metres. If 4 square metres was better, then they would have done that. So we've provided papers and evidence and science to back that up. And that, of course, look, they don't spend all day in a 3 square metre. That's where they sleep. They spend all day roaming around, running and training. No other dog, no other animal. You think about your puppy at home, no one comes in and tells you exactly the space and area that your dog has to sleep in, where greyhounds get that, and that's science-based. So what we're worried about is that from the 1st of May, suddenly every trainer is no longer meeting those regulations and the industry shuts down by stealth. We hope that's not the case, but there's nothing in this document that suggests that there's going to be a grandfather clause or anything else.
It's 19 minutes to 9 and you're listening to ABC Radio Canberra. Hearing from Kel Watt, the spokesman for the greyhound industry, responding to the data that the ABC's got of this greyhound industry code of practice that has emerged. Did you just mention there that this would come into place on May the 1st?
That's supposed. Well, the ban starts on midnight of 30th April, ticks over the 1st of May. It's no longer legal to race or trial. So the understanding we've got, and a conversation from one of the department officials directly to the club chairperson, said that they're working, in his words, 24/7 at the moment to make sure this can be ready. The final version can be ready by the 1st of May. Now, we're very worried about that. As I mentioned the 3 days that the club had to respond. I know a lot of stakeholders, such as the Veterinary Association, weren't contacted at all. But by contrast, in Victoria, they went through a 5-month process where they could go backwards and forwards about this. If you exclude expert advice in developing any code, and you exclude the stakeholders with the expertise, you're going to come up with a rubbish document. And what we're concerned about is it's not the 80 or 90% that we agree with. Most of it's just already in place. It's those little stings in the tail that we've got great concern about. That are going to have adverse outcomes on animal welfare, but also provide unnecessary financial hardship for people in the industry now.
Well, you've mentioned there that those are not coming from facts, from the data
Correct.
of research that you've put forward. So why are they in there then?
Well, I don't want to see a conspiracy theory around every corner, but I very firmly believe that here we are 2-3 weeks out from the ban, there's going to be a whole bunch of new codes, new licenses and other regulations that are going to kick in. We still don't know what the fees for those are. So the little bit of information we've got from a couple of leaks within the department show that they're going to be quite expensive. We have heard of a range of figures, but even the cheapest end is going to place a lot of people in the area that can't afford it. But where they go from areas such as making a sleeping area 3 square metres up to 4 square metres, that suddenly means that the bricks and mortar that people have had in their backyards and their properties can no longer be used lawfully to house a greyhound. So do they break the law? Do they have to knock down and rebuild to great expense? No one's got the thousands of dollars in their back pocket right now. Particularly, we don't know whether it's going to be enforced or not. So those sorts of things we fear are going to be used to make people get driven out of the industry.
Look, as I mentioned a moment ago, this is the first time that we've seen this. Has this been open, or will it open for public consultation? And if this is all going to come into place in 2 weeks and a day, is there enough time to get that consultation, to hear what Canberrans have to say, and to change that?
Not at all. And I think if you jump on people would have seen recent media about the government considering changes to how P-platers are able to drive, any restrictions and changes to that. There's a big open process now. There's a 6 to 7 week process where people can jump online, doesn't matter where you are, anywhere around the world, log into the website, give your thoughts about whether a P-plater should drive after midnight or not. By contrast, the industry and local representatives were given 3 days, but as I said, Greyhounds Australasia, the peak body's been excluded. Rehoming and animal welfare groups have been excluded from this process. The Australian Veterinary Association has been excluded from this process. So although we were able to get our response in, we simply don't know whether those other organisations will be given an opportunity. We know they haven't been so far, but if Victoria got 5 months, if peak leaders in Canberra can get 7 weeks, surely we're entitled to more than 3 days, particularly when people's livelihoods and the welfare of animals is at stake. What we will say, though, about the public consultation too, we think that there's very important to expand it beyond the industry, because we would like to see this as the basis of future codes. One of the things that the Greyhound Club has always said is that animal welfare needs to be at the basis of every regulation, every law, and that's why they've got an unblemished 39-year record, and they're the national leader in reform. We think that at the moment, no pet, no dog has anyone check on it after it's picked up from wherever you buy your puppy from. This code should be the basis of the development for other codes to see, how do we look after cats, how do we look after livestock, how do we look after pet dogs, how do we look after racing pigeons? Those sort of things. It's the big unknown at the moment, and people should be better educated, and codes should apply everywhere.
And Adam, will certainly try to get a response from the government. You'll be speaking to the Chief Minister after 9. I'd be keen to see what his thoughts are on this matter. You're hearing from Kel Watt, the spokesman for the greyhound industry. And just before you go, lots of discussion about the third seat that's being created by the Electoral Commission for Canberra because of increasing population. I wonder if you're going to throw your hat in the ring.
Oh, you probably refer to the Canberra Times article where my name popped up. It's flattering. I'll say that at a personal level whenever you see your name popped up. But look, having been a reasonably high-profile figure within the Labor Party for 27 years now, I've run before, I've worked up on the Hill and I'm active in the community. I think my name, along with probably about a dozen others that popped up in that article, was always going to be there. And right now, Adam, I'll give you the standard response that there's no pre-selection. The boundaries are yet to be fully determined. So, look, I'll take it as it was nice. I got a ribbing from a couple of mates when they saw that article. But until there's a process, there's no process. And if you can get a better response from anyone else, mate, good luck.
It sounds like a watch this space, and that we will do indeed. Kel Watt, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much, gents.
Kel Watt there, who is a current spokesperson for the greyhound industry in the ACT on a couple of issues